Hi, everyone. I have Charise here with me on this episode of the SCAR Initiative, and Charise has a very intense but extremely powerful story that I am very thrilled she has decided to share with us. I really think that you're going to get a lot of inspiration from what she has already told me a little bit about her story. So I can't wait to talk to her more in depth. So Charise, I want to turn it over to you and give you a chance to introduce yourself, and then we'll go into your story.
Okay. I'm Charise, and I'm an Air Force veteran and a mom of three. And I am an author. I can say that now. I'm an author. So that's so
Fantastic.
exciting. And I currently work at a veterans hospital here in Northern California. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me. Yeah.
How long did you serve for?
7 years and 11 months on active duty, and then a few years reserve because I did my time already that I didn't really need to complete a whole lot of years reserve. I just did a couple and then I got a full-time job. So I was like, okay, bye.
Pretty much the military lifestyle.
Yes.
Nice, nice. And what did you do when you were on active duty?
I was in services where you do the dining hall, the fitness and the recreation and things like that. So yeah, that's
Awesome.
what I did.
Well, thank you for your service, another fellow Air Force veteran. So
Yeah.
I actually met Charise through one of our Air Force or female veteran groups on Facebook. I'm a part of so many, and I'm like, wait a minute, I can't keep track of which one, but I know it was one of our veteran groups, that's for sure. So yeah, so thank you so much for coming and telling us your story. So without further ado, Charise, can you tell us a little bit about the history of this internal scar, how it occurred, the significance of it to you, and what this scar means to you?
So I'll just start with when I was younger,
Okay.
right? I experienced sexual abuse from my uncle, and that sent me on a path of like people pleasing, like all of the things. And I wanted my mom's approval for everything. And when my uncle was caught, she took his side in everything. And so it was very confusing for me at the time. And I really took that on as I did something wrong. I got us caught. Everybody's mad at me. And I wore that for a long, long time. And so the reason I wanted to start with that is because that is what I feel is my initial scar. And then being in the military, I had, I got into the military because I wanted to escape my life. I didn't want to be there anymore. I always told people I just didn't want to be a bum. So I joined the military because I didn't have a college I wanted to go to. I didn't have any of that stuff. So I was like, yeah, just joining the military. They have all the stuff in one, so I'll just do it.
That's right.
And I never went to college while in the Air Force either. I just worked. So while in the military, I was in Korea. That was my first base.
Okay.
Osan.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. It was
wow.
After never being out of California my whole life, other than to drive through Nevada, because you had to like go up to like Reno or something crazy like that. Like that's the only reason I was out of California. So I never have been outside of it other than going to Korea and basic training, that was in Texas.
Right.
Aside from that, I didn't do anything. So it was an extreme shock for me. I was like, okay, I want to get back home as fast as possible. I don't want to be here. They're like, oh, you get the base that you want. I do? Okay, great. I only put one thing down. They're like, oh, you might want to put a few more. So I did. And once I was in Korea, it was fun to me. I loved it. And I got to know a lot of people from different areas. That's where I learned that racism was real, because I didn't in California. It's very like, melting pot in Northern California. You know, all my schools that I went to were all everybody. So I didn't even know that was like a thing until I joined the military. No one was specifically racist toward me, but hearing from other people, they're like, you're okay. Yeah, I guess in California it's not. And I'm like, no, I don't know what that even means, you know? So it was really an eye-opening experience because I didn't learn a lot growing up. You know, we don't learn a lot about what's going on the outside world. And what I call what my uncle created back then, because he went to prison and everything for like some odd years, like 12 years or something. And he runs a cult in that area, in that whole thing. So I didn't realize that's what it was until I got older. I'm like, this is wild, you know? So I realized that after a while, but in that I didn't realize it. So we were very sheltered. Everything that we did, we all knew what we all did in this one little pot versus like other people going out with other friends or anything. We just we weren't able to be influenced by anybody. So joining the military, it was total like shock to me, like really in a big way, because I hadn't experienced a whole lot. And so I partied hard. I spent money hard because I didn't have any money to myself ever, you know. So I had fun, and we were having like exercise. It's so funny because when I always have to realize like I'm talking to a fellow military person, so I don't have to like explain 50 other things, you know. So it's a relief to be able to be like, oh, we did this exercise. And you know, have full mop gear. So in Korea, you have to wear full mop gear everywhere, no matter what, like except for like your mask. Depending on what mop you're in, you have to like walk around.
I see.
And it was like, it was just like very tiring. I've worked so many hours, you know. So when I had gone home to my room, my dorm room, because we were all in like a big old dorm in Korea, me and my roommate worked opposite shifts, thankfully. So she was gone when I came in. One of the folks that I knew, he had come over, and I told him like, okay, I always had a rule, don't sit on my bed, because I felt like that crossed a boundary and then people felt like they could like do more. So I was just like, no, this is a small space, just stay in the chair by the desk, you know, like that's where I want you to be. So this particular time I was so tired. I had just laid down in bed, and I told him, you know, just sit on the chair and we can like talk. So we were strictly friends, like nothing at all. Like I would literally tell you if it was something going on, but it was like absolutely nothing. And so we had this conversation, and then next thing I know, he's sitting on the bed, and I'm like, really? I said, don't sit on the bed. I'm just so tired. Like, just go sit back in the chair. So I kind of got tired of being like, okay, sit on the chair, you know? And so I just said, whatever, he's probably going to be gone soon because I'm going to go to sleep. So he then lays next to me on top of the cover. And then I'm just like, okay, I don't really understand, because I was very, and I'm still very straightforward, but back then I really cut to the chase because of the trauma that I had been through already. So in between the childhood trauma and like my teen years too. So I would make it very clear if I was interested in someone, so I wouldn't have to have that, oh, they thought, or they, you know. So I was like, wait, why are you in my bed? I don't want, you know, you to be here. And then he proceeded to be under the cover. Then he started to like get on top of me and everything. And I was just like, no, I really don't want to like do this, like at all. I don't like this. And he was like, well, you keep teasing me, so we're just going to do it. And I'm like, what? You know? And I told him, I said, and at this point, when I said these words, these are the words that made me think that I was at fault, like I did something wrong. And this is why I share the story that I have, because once he was like, we're doing this. I said, at least put a condom on. And those words later rang to me as like, you gave him permission. You gave him permission. You said, you know. And as I went through the, there's the SARC, the Sexual Assault Response Coordinator. And so I took part in that later on, because I was like, okay, I want to help other people. And, you know, it just seemed like a cool thing to do and everything. And in that, they had a training that said that we are, that me saying that, like, at least put a condom on, was my last ditch effort to like protect myself. And that was like such a realization for me, like, oh my gosh, like I didn't okay this. I was just like, please, just, I don't, you know, I want to be protected from whatever is going on. At least I want to have some type of control over the situation. And he did not listen to it. He told me, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to come inside you anyways. And I was like, okay, like I'm supposed to be all right with this, you know?
Yeah.
So I just started crying. And so he got up and he's like, I don't know what you're crying for. I didn't do anything. I didn't come inside you. So it's fine. And he like left.
Oh.
And I was just like, okay, I didn't, you know, I was just left there sad, crying. I went to the bathroom, kind of like, what is going on? Because all these things are running through my head. I could be pregnant. I can do, you know, anything. And I was just like, okay, so what do I do with this? You know, like this happened. I said, okay, just put a condom on. Oh no, I can't tell people about this, because in Korea, it's like a thing. Everybody's drinking, everybody's partying all the time. And there's so many people that say that they were sexually assaulted and then it's not true or whatever, you know, there's just all these things swarming around. So I was like, oh, I really don't want to get involved in that. I just want to quietly go home, you know? So this happened in like February, and I was scheduled to leave Korea in like April or somewhere around there. So I was like, I'm just going to keep my head down. I'm not going to do a whole lot. I'm just going to go home. And one day I started to feel really weird when I was drinking. I was like, I don't really like this. It was on St. Patrick's Day. And I was like, I don't know why I just don't feel like drinking.
Yeah.
I said, oh man, am I pregnant? Because, you know, it was my first time being pregnant, no clue. I just felt different.
Yeah.
So I asked my roommate, like, hey, can you go buy a test for me? You know, like, because, you know, when it's not you, it's a little easier to go and buy the test. And so she did that for me, and she put it in a little SpongeBob bag. And that was my favorite character at the time, was SpongeBob. So it made me feel really good and comfortable. And I took the test. And when I found out it was positive, the first thing I did was punch my stomach and say, why? I don't want this. I don't know how to do this. I don't want any kids. Like, before I had kids, I always told people I hate kids. I don't want kids, because I grew up watching kids like my whole life. So I was just like, I don't want anything to do with this. I just want to live my life. That's it. Yeah. So I was very adamant about, when I get back to California, I am getting an abortion. That was my first thought. Like, I don't want to do this. I'm done. Yeah. And after like really sitting with it, there was like a variety of things like that. Either people told me without even knowing I was pregnant, or like stuff that I saw, or things that I felt. And I was approaching like 5 months by the time I got back to like look at the baby and all of that. Yeah. And I ran like a full PT test and did everything while 5 months pregnant. I refused to tell anybody. Yeah. Like, I was on the road to getting an abortion. So I was like, I'll just run this stuff and be done with it. Right. And I called my mom, because that's all I know. You know, I don't know anything else. And I had separated myself from them, my mom, my uncle, everybody. for a while up until then, like pretty much the whole year while in Korea. So having to reach out to my mom was like, okay, I don't want to do this because I know she's siding with that guy, but I don't have anybody that I can rely on because I was so sheltered, even outside of like my other family members, like my mom's sisters, my aunts. I didn't know them like that because they kept us from them. So I reached out to her. She took me to the clinic, and the person doing the ultrasound, she said later to me, like, something that wasn't rude, because now it may seem like it was like, wow, she was very rude, but she just said, hey, I don't know you, but I feel like if you really wanted to do this, you would be this way, something like that. And I was like, dang, she's probably right, because I, how I feel and everything. Yeah. So I had conversations with my cousin. She was one of the first ones that I told, and she said, just have the baby and then like give it up. Think about the people, think about your aunt who can't have kids, And I was like, oh, yeah, that's true, And I said to myself, I'm not gonna hold the baby for 9, almost 10 months and give it up. That's just not in my DNA. I'm not gonna feel good about that.
Right.
And giving her up to a family member and being at like a thing. She looks dead on me, like
yeah.
not gonna work out very well, but okay.
Right.
So a lot of things that people were concerned about most of the time was how I would treat her after she was born, because she may look like her father or things like that. She may act like him. And I was like, well, I won't do that. I know I won't do that. I won't feel that type of thing because it's my child.
Yeah.
That's it, And so I went through with having her, and she's beautiful and lovely. Yes. She's beautiful because she looked like me, but
that's right, she does.
and that started a whole new thing in me to be a different person and show up differently. And I was still around my mom when I got pregnant and when I had her and everything. And my uncle, he was in prison at the time. And I'm going to rewind a little bit. Can I rewind a little bit?
Absolutely. Yes.
So when I was 11, that's when my uncle was caught. And then at like 12, I went back to my mom's because my dad was going through a hard time and had to give me back to my mom. Gotcha. By this time, my uncle was locked up. So in my dad's mind, of course, was, okay, he's locked away. It's fine.
Sure.
When I came back to be living with my mom, it was like he was not anything bad. And everybody was so happy to go see him in prison. Like nothing ever, like I was never a victim. So I was kind of confused by that a little bit. Like, okay, so they were just going to act like this, nothing happened. Because with my dad, it was like I went to counseling and he checked on me and all that. And being with my mom, it was just like, everybody forget about it. Let's do this thing. We're going to go visit him in prison like every weekend and any holiday.
Is that who it was? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was just really weird for me. So when I went back to her when I found out I was pregnant and everything, they were still visiting him, all these things. And it's still, from the time I was 16, I was really vocal about like, I don't know why we're visiting this man. I don't want to do this anymore. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. And so, and at like 22 years old, 21 or 22, I'm still in that frame of mind. Like, I don't quite understand this, but this is my mom and I don't want her to not be in her grandchild's life. I'm having all these things. And I remember being in the prison and my uncle couldn't visit minors for obvious reasons. So he couldn't have them in there. But he got around that by having someone else visit the minors. So they were still around. So we're all sitting around and talking and whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember having my daughter there, and my mom or someone, I can't remember, and you're going to realize why. I don't remember what happened, but I know my daughter went from one person to like my mom or my aunt or something. But in order to get her there, they passed her through my uncle, right? And so when this happened, all I remember is seeing him hold her and pass her. And I don't know what it was, like something, so much anger, so much everything that I could even like muster up all the emotions. I was just like, I can't do this. I can't be, because I need to preserve his life. Because if I stay here, if I want to be, around them, and he's able to be around my child, I don't know what I'll do. So I'm just gonna back away from this. So I started talking more with my cousin, and I ended up having her, we ended up living together after I got back from another deployment. And she was just like, you don't have to listen to what he says. When you're inside of like that type of mentality with the church and the Bible and all this stuff being thrown at you and how you should obey this and obey that, it's like, okay, I have to do these things, because if I don't, I'm going to die, essentially. Like that's just how you feel. So she told me, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. And I'm like, okay, because she was pretty much alive. She was alive. So I'm thinking she's not doing that. So it must be okay,
Yeah.
So then I essentially escape from them. And I say, I told my mom, look, I don't respect my uncle as a man of God at all.
Right.
So, and in the Bible, it says that you should respect the man of God and yada, yada, yada. And so I don't want to go against what's in the Bible because I don't respect him. So I'm just going to not listen to him and not follow his teachings. That's just all it is. So I separated myself from that. And I started on a path of my own to do my own thing, And eventually I had my daughter on my last deployment in 2011. My daughter was being watched by a family friend and not my mom. And my mom, in past times when she watched my daughter for me, sounds so crazy that the grandmother would be watching her grandchild, but it's fine. She had asked me for my whole BAH while I was gone, like all of it, in order to care for my child. And I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense, because I'm trying to save, right, while I'm deployed, so that when I get back, I can get a place and all that. And so I was like, no, I can't do that, but I can give you this much for her. And she even went to like my first sergeant, everything, like to say like, she's not giving me this money. And they were like, gosh, she doesn't even have to give you that, whatever she's giving you. So leave, like basically she was
what?
She was there a lot. Like she went there like at least like twice a week for like a couple weeks after I left for deployment. Gosh. So they were just like, because I would tell them like my mom, I would just leave it very brief. Like, I got to figure out somebody else to put on my emergency family plan. My mom's not a good person. And they're like, but she's the closest to, like, no, not going to work. And they saw firsthand when I was deployed. They were
like, it's okay. We get it now.
We see. So my last deployment, I refused. I'm like, I'm not going to have any connection with her. I'm going to find somebody else. I'm not going back there, like, at all. And so someone that I've known since I was like 12, she watched my daughter for me. And while there, she asked me, what is her favorite food? And I was like, well, you got to call the caregiver, because I would work all these crazy hours, with services, you work dining hall, whatever hours you get. And I was like, well, I got to call them because she's with them all the time. And that hurt me to say for two reasons. One, because I was working all the time. But then on the flip side, I would party on my off time. So I didn't even, like that part was just like, okay, well, I really got to figure this out. And being in the military isn't helping me build a stronger relationship with my daughter. I want something better than what me and my mom have. Yes. So I got to get out to do that. And so I got out, and immediately, I'm taking her to the zoo. I'm taking her to do, all the things, get her McDonald's and do, walk her to school. You got all the time in the world, right? And took her to get nails done, all that. And it was fun. I conceived my son maybe a few months after I got out of the military. And after that, my daughter was 7 or going on. She was 7. Mm-hmm. After I had my son, she was turning 7. And I went to an interview one day for the VA hospital that I work at. I was so excited. Mm-hmm. I felt good at that interview. You get that feeling of like, oh, they're going to hire me, because they're walking me through the place, they're like, oh, look at, this is where you're going to sit. And, I'm like, oh, this is perfect time. I'm about to get this job. I was so excited. And then when I left the job, I noticed I had a voicemail, and I'm like, okay. So I check, and it's like, hey, it's the school, call us back. I can't really tell you the details in voicemail. Oh shoot, that's not good. So I call, and I'm like, yes, this is her mother. And they told me that she had said something very upsetting. So she had to go to a facility to be put on hold because she said that she wanted to harm herself. Oh. And a lot of times when I tell people that she was put in a facility because she said that, it's almost kind of like, well, why? When she just said that. Not only did she say it, she said how she was going to do it. Oh. So that's what triggered them to be like, whoa, she needs to be watched then. So she was taken to a facility on a Friday because they don't, it's over the weekend. So you can't check them out. They don't go to like the other hospital because it's not open and all that. So she was there all weekend. I didn't see her. And I'm mad at her, mad at the school, mad at myself, mad at everybody, just not understanding what's going on. Mm-hmm. I left the military for her. She's doing this, she's doing that. I don't even understand. Where does she get this from?
Mm-hmm. And how old was she at the time?
7.
She was 7 saying this.
7. Yes. And there was something that she had mentioned to a friend at a friend's house. She was doing a sleepover. Mm-hmm. And it was basically like she had a dream that I loved her brother more than her. And so the lady told me that. And I was like, I don't know why. I just felt like here she goes telling people stuff. And now it looks like I'm such a bad mom. When I'm doing all this stuff for you, I don't understand.
Right.
So everything was like a big, like, she's doing all this stuff to me and I'm looking bad, So when she said that, it triggered even more anger. Like, oh, okay, now she done told the school. And now it's just a big old thing. And what are they going to do,
Right.
And as a parent and being a Black mother too, it's always been like a thing. Like, don't let CPS get involved in your life. They're going to take your kids. And I'm sure it's probably with other races too, but really, like, my dad was like, don't tell them anything. He was like going off on me. Like, don't tell them nothing. You get her out of that facility as soon as you can. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know what to do. And he was like so adamant, like, they're going to take her. Do not do that.
Yeah.
And I really had all these like different views from people like, oh, you need to like take her out of there. Other ones are like, leave her in there. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I just know I'm mad. I still need to go to school so I can get my GI Bill so I can pay for this house that we're in right now.
That's right.
I can't afford to like do all this stuff, And my son's dad, who I'm with now, we weren't together then. I told him, I was like, you know what? I'm not visiting her in that place. I got to go to school. She's crazy. I need to go to school, get my rent so I can pay. And he was like, you need to shut up talking to me right now. I was like, what? He's like, that is your daughter. And I don't even know why you're talking like that. Like, you should be wanting to do everything. And I was like, you paying my rent? Is that what you're going to do? Is that what you're saying right now? He was just looking at me. And I was like, and I just got my stuff and I left. And I didn't go very far because I'm just like, back then I was very much my pride was so big for everything. So I'd be like, I don't care. And then walk out and really be crying, like that's really what, I drove down the street and I was just like, I really got to figure out something. Charise, you got to do something. Like, you can't, you want better for her than you had with your mom. This is where you change that. Yeah. You can't just say she's on her own because you're mad or whatever. So I called my school. They told me what I need to do to make sure I met the requirements for being there in person. And I still got the BAH and everything. I went to visit her. I think they had visiting 3 times a day, and I went 3 times a day and to see her. And I let her stay as long as she felt comfortable, because in my mind, I don't know what's going on with her on the inside, and her hurting and her coming home hurting when I don't even know how to begin is not a safe space. I don't want to wake up and she'd already done it. I want to create a safe space for her and let her know that I'm changing. Whatever you thought was bad here is changing when you get back. There's not going to be the same thing. So she eventually felt comfortable. It was only like 6 or 7 days, I think. It felt like forever because I was going there every single day. And while maybe when she got out, but I got like parenting classes, I got counseling for me, counseling for her, counseling for us. I did like everything because I was like, I'm just throw everything in there and figure out what I need to do, because I wasn't taught. I wasn't taught how to be the way that I wanted to be to her. So I had to learn it. So I was just like, okay, let me do all these things. Yes. And my church was offering like parenting classes. And in that parenting class, they talked about the 5 love languages. And I was just like, okay, this is making some sense, because she didn't necessarily feel the love from me when it came to material things, because that just wasn't her top priority. Her priority was hugs and kisses and all that stuff. Yeah. And she saw me giving that to her brother. He's an infant. Like, what can I do? I'm forced, but she didn't see that. Yeah. She just saw, she loves him more because she's giving him hugs and stuff. And it like hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, that's why she feels like I love him more, because she sees this, but that's not the case at all. Right. I don't know how to love on a child after 5 years old, because to me, it felt weird because of the trauma I experienced when I was 11, 10, maybe earlier. It's like, what does healthy family love and healthy touch look like? I have no clue. I just wanted to stay out of the arena of doing something that someone did to me. So I had to really learn, like, okay, so she wants hugs, give her hugs. I had to really push myself outside of that comfort zone of being very much like distant from her in the physical realm. And I would literally take pictures for social media and be like, look at us hanging out. Ooh. And then after the picture, we're like in separate rooms. It was like that. We weren't close. We weren't anything. I just fed her, gave her a roof, and called it a day. Like, you get all the essentials, you are loved. Okay. Yeah. So me discovering her love languages were like physical touch was like the top, was a real big game changer for me. And it has triggered a whole bunch of things, like me being a coach for other moms, and especially ones in the military, because I realized that while deploying and coming back, trying to connect and then disconnect and all that, it was really hard for me. So I just disconnected and stayed disconnected. Experiencing her crying at almost 2 years old because she doesn't understand who I am. She's so scared of me and just wanting to get away from me. I didn't understand that. I was so hurt. So I was like, I don't want to experience that again. We're not doing this. We're just going to keep it off. And then like, that's it.
Right.
So turning on that emotion, I had to realize that, like, okay, this is what I want to help other military moms through is you can do little things, inexpensive things that will get you connected to your daughter in a way that you don't even know it's doing it, but it is, So I started doing that with her, like the little things. And I wrote a 90-day guide, which is why I mentioned I'm an author. I wrote a 98-day guide for military moms to connect with their daughters. And they're literally things from 5 minutes to an hour each day that you can do. Wow. And majority of them are 5 to 30 minutes. And there's like probably one thing that's like an hour. And you literally can connect by giving a high five. You can literally connect by making her bed. You can literally, like, all these things that I didn't really think of, like would be connecting with her. Right. That are. And so that's why I like put it all in this book with all, day one, this is what you do, so you can do those inexpensive, non-time consuming things, no matter what schedule you work, you can get those things done. So my passion is for that, like really connecting moms with daughters. And yes, it's good for sons. It's good for all moms. It's good for whatever, but the mother-daughter relationship is so, so important. It's where we get our confidence. It's where we get our strength, and seeing our mom and being connected with our mom is just something that's like, it like surpasses like anything else. And moms need their daughters need their moms, and we need strong women to move through this life. So absolutely. Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow. You have such a resilient story. I mean, to come from where you were in the family that you had to realizing it, the cycle's breaking with me. It's not this is not going to be generational. This is ending with me. Did you ever have that mindset before you really had that healing and the coping that you learned? Did that ever occur to you that this is something that's going to end with you?
No, I just knew that I wanted better. I didn't understand why my mom didn't stand up for me. I didn't understand why she didn't believe me. I was like, how can a mom not be there? I don't understand that. So when I had my own child, the feeling I had was like, I'd do anything to protect her. And I don't care if she said somebody touched the top of her head wrong. I'm going ham. Like I don't understand.
You need mama bear. That's right.
Yeah. I did not understand it, but older now and knowing what I know about my family, because I've opened up about my story to even my family members who didn't know, and they've told me about traumas in my mom's life that happened that concerned her, my uncle too, and like all these things. So I understand a little bit more what it is and what's kept her this way. And it made me move in a much stronger way to change that and make sure that I'm changing that in my whole DNA everywhere.
Yes. And what's your relationship like now with your daughter and some of your other family members?
With my daughter, I don't want to brag, but she tagged me in her stories,
That's a big deal. That is a big deal.
She didn't show my name, but she tagged me. Okay. It's okay. And she's 16, and I feel like she has the normal teenage thing, attitude or whatever, but it's not amplified because I'm able to slow her down and have her understand what those feelings are, and be through my own healing and realizing like, hey, this is how I can guide her, because I didn't know how to regulate those feelings. I was slamming doors and acting crazy. And I think she's only slammed a door twice, maybe.
Wow.
And not even as like 15, 16, more of like 12, 13. And so we just teach her how to regulate those feelings, and me really discovering that she is just a smaller human dealing with the same size emotions. So if I can help her hone those in, it's okay. We're okay here, and treat her like a human, and not like a child that's to be seen and not heard, like I was taught growing up. So
wow. Do you think that it was an acting out the suicidal ideations that she was having? Do you have that conversation with her? But this is where it came from. Now we have an understanding of the root problem. This is how we can work on it.
So she didn't really have words for it at 7.
Yeah.
But as we move through it, it's more of like her feeling like she did something wrong. So those thoughts, they have come back, right? And she went into cutting at like 11, 12, 13, something around there. And we talked her through that. Like, we let her know there's healthier ways and to cope with that, and really understand, when does this happen, so that we can help you. And also letting her know that me growing up, I did the same thing, but not cutting. I hurt myself though. When I did something wrong, I would hit myself as if I was punishing myself, because I wanted to not feel what was going on. I wanted to get myself to act right. And I think really sharing that with her changed how she viewed it. Like, okay, my mom doesn't do that now. I can change this. I can take the healthy ways of coping with it and move through life. Okay. So, and we just listen too, whenever she's, it was really a long road for us. It's not like we woke up and we have this perfect team. From the time that she was like 9, 10, we were really drilling down, like, okay, this is how we are going to be. This is how, and just sticking with that. Like, this, I'm going to choose to connect with you unconditionally. No matter if you messed up at school, we're going to connect today.
Yeah.
Instead of holding that over her head, like, well, you were bad, so you're not going to watch a movie with me. No, letting her know that it's unconditional, this love that I have. What you did was wrong. We're going to discuss that over here, but we're going to watch this movie and connect regardless. So in all of that, and really letting her know those things, showed her love, as opposed to just saying, oh, we love you. You're beautiful. Don't worry about what other people say. They want to see it at home first. They want to feel it at home first, not just, don't worry about this, don't worry about that, but really show that to them and not have them. I'm big on like the people pleasing aspect. So if we're saying you were bad, so you can't do with me, you can't connect with me because you didn't do so-and-so, that creates a people pleasing aspect in their lives that, okay, I have to do good to make sure this person, if I just did more. And I always think about the picture in the long run, right? Like, I don't want her with some guy who's like, well, you didn't do, so I wouldn't want that. I don't want her stuck in a relationship because she's so busy trying to make up for something that she thinks she did wrong. That's where my mind goes every time when I say, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to connect today. It's like, do you want some guy to connect with her before you connect with her? Oh, no, I don't. Let me go and do that. Keeping that in mind. I don't want to hug her today. Do you want her first hug to be from some guy? And she'd be so thrilled because she never got that. Like really thinking about that, what will happen in the future, what could be, what I experience older is like, I want this attention from this guy. I want this, I want that. My mom doesn't talk to me about it, so I'm just going to go and find out,
That's amazing.
So,
wow. It's so important that it does start at home. Those connections, those bonds, that the healthy versus the unhealthy. and that you had the wherewithal to recognize, even if there weren't words for it, you recognized this is not going to continue. I'm going to make sure that she gets that affection and that care, and her love language is being spoken to her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's clear. It is absolutely clear that these scars impacted you both negatively and positively. You had some great testimonies to come out of it. So what do you feel like impacted you either physically or internally then versus now to really cope with it and to be able to share and to not feel that shame?
Ooh, that's a good question, because I think it just, because I told people, I shared a lot on Facebook what was going on with us, like later on, like I experienced this was crazy. She said that she wanted to harm herself. Let's go. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I took people on the journey of me growing in love together. That's the name of my podcast. That's the name of my book. That's the name of my like everything.
I love it. Yeah.
And so what I took people on this journey of us growing in love together. And people would always say, I love your transparency. I love that you're opening up. It would be from moms, it'd be from dads, it'd be from everybody. They would just say to me, your transparency, it keeps me moving. It keeps me seeing that what I'm doing is good and I can keep going in this way. Mm-hmm. And when people started to validate that more back to me, because I was just sharing, because I really, when I was going through all this stuff, I had no clue what to do. I was like, I don't know what, and then as I started telling people, they're like, oh yeah, I remember going through something similar. I'm like, well, where were you when I was asking all these questions?
Oh my
So goodness. I said to myself, I'm going to share with other people so they're not like stuck in this hamster wheel trying to figure it out. So that's what really started my journey of like being very open about what I've been through so that others can take the baton as opposed to starting at the beginning.
It's so much easier when we recognize that somebody else, while all of our stories are very individualized, there's the themes and the concepts that we can all relate to or empathize with. Because at some point we felt that type of emotion or been in a situation where we have either felt that humiliation. Shame is a huge, huge theme in a lot of our stories, and being afraid and that vulnerability is so scary. But once we shed that I have to be strong, that persona of don't worry about me, I got this, holy cow, does that weight just lift?
Oh yeah.
And it's like that's where the real healing starts. How was your healing journey for you? I mean, starting so young and then transitioning your time in the military and then as a civilian.
How was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you remember the different types of the healing that you went through?
Yeah, I from being a child and experiencing sexual abuse, I realized that I didn't do a lot of healing in the beginning because nobody heard me. I wasn't able to talk about it. Like I said, my mom pretended like nothing happened and we were just gung-ho about this guy. So I didn't get to talk about it a lot. But when I did have the moments, I remember feeling a little better. Like, okay, it's not like that person helped me do anything, but I was able to speak my truth and what had happened. So in my early 20s, one of my cousins, he had escaped from there as well. And we had conversations about, things that had gone on, and it validated that we weren't crazy, right? To each other. It's like, okay, so this was happening and this is, so it just started me on this, like, okay, I just want to make sure I talk about it. And I said, you know what? The reason why this stuff is still going on in our family is because nobody's saying anything. Everybody has their own story, but they're all just over here not sharing because they just want to, I don't know, escape it, forget about it. Or they might feel like they were crazy or they weren't really seeing what they were seeing, right? So as I went through that and talking about it more and seeing and like within the last 2 to 3 years, I started my podcast and I started to speak more about my story there. And it was very liberating for me. I wasn't talking to nobody but myself. That's just, I just wanted to talk it out, and I put it up there and people heard it and they were like, oh, that's so amazing,
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, cool. I love talking about it. So I'm just going to keep doing that and sharing my journey, because that's my ultimate thing. And that's how I've experienced more and more healing, even in my relationship with my lovely man, as I like to call him.
Mm-hmm.
And even in that, I had shared some stories on my podcast about that, because the scars that I've spoken about really played a part in our relationship and how I responded to certain things. And sharing that part of my story helped heal me and understand me and be able to move through it and strengthen the relationship that him and I have.
That's incredible. Yeah. Those scars are so important to share, because it feels like it's almost impossible. You can try as much as you want to have a relationship with somebody, whoever that may be. I mean, it could be a spouse, it could be your kids, your parents, doesn't matter what the title is. But when you got those scars that you're hanging on to, that you haven't coped with or working on healing, and they don't know, you can't really get over that hump of, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I just imagine this big mound of, somebody trying to ascend it, and then they can't until you finally say, okay, let me tell you, because this is important that you know this about me, because there's a lot of things that are going to impact us together.
Yes. And that, like, to that point, because my uncle would always ask me to perform oral on him, I had a really hard time with when my significant other would ask me. I really, don't ask me. Just I'll do it whenever I feel like it. Don't ask me.
Right.
And until I shared with him what it was or what happened, he didn't understand it. He just like, okay, until I shared it with them. And then it was easier for me to do and him to understand as well. And it helped me heal through that, knowing that his intentions weren't malicious. They weren't, just learning more about what his intentions were by me speaking out about what was going on with me really helped me move through the relationship in a big way.
That's amazing. Yeah, because no one's going to know what you didn't grow up knowing wasn't natural. They'll never know that it was or was not to you without you saying that. And so it's incredible. It is such a heavy issue that a lot of people it's a difficult topic to have a conversation about. I mean, where do you start with trying to even say, was it my fault? I mean, no, it's not your fault, but you don't know these things, even as an adult or a kid. So it's so brave of you to share that, so that somebody else will be able to take that and hopefully heal their heart and their mind. So what message or takeaway would you want somebody who's listening to your story to have of it?
Two things come to mind. There is strength in vulnerability. So opening up and being vulnerable to people you trust, it really will bring the strength to you, even if it is telling your story through a book, through a podcast, through being on this SCAR initiative, like
that's right.
There's strength when you're vulnerable. And the next thing that I will say is removing the you in guilt leaves you with GILT, which is growing in love together. So removing that you factor of what did I do? What could I have done? Why did I do this? And really look at your relationship with that person, whether it's your mom, your sister, your daughter, and say, how can we grow in love together? Because it's two people that make a relationship, no matter the relationship. So removing the you in guilt, and growing in love together is where it's at.
I love that. I never thought about that in that context. And it's amazing that you have come up with such a wonderful way of expressing it. So tell us how people can connect with your podcast and your book and you after they finish watching this. I would love to share that with them.
Going to growinginlovetogether.com.
All right.
And if you want to just search up my podcast, it's on pretty much 99% of the podcast platforms.
Okay.
And that's Growing in Love Together is the name of the podcast as well. And on Instagram, I am at Growing in Love Together. And on Facebook, if you like to hang out there, I am Charise Freeman. And I believe on my TikTok, I'm Growing in Love Together as well.
Okay.
So pretty much when you search Growing in Love Together, you'll find me.
Excellent. Well, I will definitely include the links for people to get in contact with you with your website. And please follow Charise and support what she's doing with Growing in Love Together. It's a phenomenal platform that you have, an initiative that you got going. So any way that we can really drive people to help supporting you, this just helps connect each other worldwide, no matter what we're doing, because we all have that story to tell. It's very important that everybody has a chance to share their scar that has impacted them.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Charise. Do you have any last parting words you want to include?
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for watching this and listening to this. And I want to hear from you. If this story inspired you, I really love to hear that my story inspired someone. So you can email me also at charise@growinginlovetogether.com and just say just let me know what you thought of this. I love to hear from my audience. I do.
Excellent. Thank you, Charise. It's been a pleasure talking with you.